Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Ethics Experts. I'm your host, Giovanni Gallo, and I'm super excited to introduce you to and feature Rebecca Barnes-Hogg. She is the chief consultant and the leader and founder of YOLO Insights. You can find her company at yoloinsights.com and check out her book, The YOLO Principle, The Ultimate Hiring Guide for Small Business. Welcome to the show, Rebecca.
Hi, thanks. I'm glad to be here. It's a beautiful sunny day, so that's nice, and especially in these chaotic times.
Yeah, we got to take what we can. We got to take
Right,
whatever wins we have, right?
right, exactly.
So the way we love starting off is starting with your personal story. We're going to get into some things today, talking about hiring and how you can build a good culture by getting the right people into a company. And I know that you help people kind of find the right insights in that process. But before we get into that great advice that you have for us in this fresh approach to hiring top talent, talk to us a little bit about yourself and how you came to this career and how you came to be doing the stuff that you love.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I started out probably way back in high school. I was always the person people came to for advice on, how do I get a summer job or an after school kind of position. So I was always helping my friends figure out where they could get jobs they would like. And then as I graduated from high school and went to college and all that and had a number of different jobs, I always ended up getting frustrated because it always seemed like I worked with really great people, but they were just never, the right people in the right jobs. And that always frustrated me, both, from a coworker perspective, but also from I always saw that business side of it where I was looking at all of these companies that are spending a lot of time and money bringing good people into the organization, but they ultimately didn't work out and they left or ended up worse being fired because they just didn't fit well. And so I decided that my career really needed to focus on the human resources aspect of that. I went back to school, got a master's degree in human resources, and then worked in HR for probably 20, 25 years in a corporate setting. And a lot of my focus, and from HR, the people who are in HR, and even compliance related issues that would land on my desk as a senior leader in HR, really you could trace back to having the wrong people in the job from the very beginning. And so probably the last half of my career, I really focused in on, let's get it right on the front end and alleviate the pain and the issues that arise on the back end when you don't get it right. And when I left corporate America, that's about 10 years or so ago, I decided to start YOLO Insights, and that was my primary focus because that was the area I loved most about HR, was really getting the right people in the right jobs within organizations so that they would be more efficient, more effective, and ultimately more profitable because, that's really why businesses are in business, right? Make a profit.
Sure. That's awesome. I love that perspective. And, I think so many of us, when we find our passion, it comes from kind of a pain point that we have, that we've experienced something and we say, hey, you know what, this probably could be done better. And I love that you've identified that and built your career around solving that issue. It's something that, we at Compliance Line and I personally care about. We say here that most people spend most of their waking hours for most years of their life at work. And for there not to be a good fit for that, it's not only a drag on business profitability and efficiency and all the metrics that they look at, but it leaves the people, the employees, it leaves them in a tough spot, kind of suffering through something that maybe they don't have to. So it's great that you contribute to helping that.
Yeah, that falls into the name of my business, YOLO, you only live once. And like, life's too short to suffer through the wrong people in the wrong positions. And, I always felt like work should be fun. People should enjoy what they do because I really believe people don't wake up in the morning saying, I want to go to work and make everybody around me miserable today. I just really, at the core of us, maybe there are a few crazy people out there like that, but I really feel like
some
most
curmudgeons
of us
who are actually trying to do that.
I actually have probably run across a few like that in my career, but I really believe that, the vast majority of people are not waking up in the mornings thinking, how can I make everyone miserable today?
Yeah. So let's talk about that for a little bit. So what, if someone's making people miserable at work, how does that usually happen? And what can we keep an eye on to change that?
Yeah, well, I think part of it goes back to I spent a lot of time in my work working with hiring managers on interviewing techniques. So it's really around asking the right questions when you interview people to really make sure they're going to enjoy the job they're doing. So one
Mm.
of the things I like to do is ask someone, in your current role, what is the thing you least like to do?
Ah,
And if they tell me that the thing they least like to do is going to be 90% of the job I have for them, then I know it's not going to be a fit. And so then I can have that conversation with them and say, well, you just told me that the thing you don't like most is working with pivot tables or charts and graphs or doing data visualization within Excel. And unfortunately, that's going to be 90% of this job. So I don't think it's a good fit for you. Would you agree with that? And they're always going to say, yes, thank you for being that honest with me.
okay.
Like, I don't want to waste anyone's time. And, it's an investment on both sides. And so I like to be as open and transparent about what the job actually is and let
Mm.
people self-select out if it's not what they want.
Okay. What if someone runs into that and someone says, "Oh yeah, well I don't like that here, but it's just because I have a bad computer. Or, like I'd be fine doing it." And they say, actually, I would like to do that in this role.
Then I think you really need to dig deeper and say, okay, so what kind of computer would be better? Because Excel is Excel no matter what computer you're working on,
It really
right?
is, even on a Mac.
The program's the program.
Right.
So, I would delve into why is the computer going to make a difference? What are your thoughts on that? And then just really keep digging until you get them to either admit that, I'm just desperate for a job and need the money, or they really do have a legitimate reason for why they don't like that in their current job, and that reason will not exist in your organization.
Mm. Yeah, that's a great point. You got to kind of dig in on that, and maybe sometimes there's a reason, but if you spend some time on it, you might figure it out, huh?
Right, right. Yeah.
So, um, you know, ethics experts are, we're leaders. We're running our own teams. We're building a team out as our company grows, and as senior leadership understands more and more how important a culture of integrity and ethics is at a company. Um, how how can you give us some advice as, as a division scales and as we go from 2 to 5 to 20 people on our team, how maybe a hiring process needs to change, or the way that we think about kind of building that team out may be different from what made us successful before?
Sure. I think every time you add someone new to the team, it's going to change the dynamic somewhat. So I
Okay.
think on the front end, you need to really identify, what are your core values? What's important to you? What qualities are important in your team? And it's more than just making sure, all people are the same, because you want some diversity in there, not
Uh-huh.
just of, people themselves, but of backgrounds, of thoughts, different degrees or programs, people who come from different geographic areas. You need a lot of diversity on your team. You don't want everyone being alike.
Yeah, on a lot
So,
of those different dimensions, right? It's not,
right.
diversity is not just about race and gender.
Right. You want single people, you want married people, you want people with kids, you want, because you bring your life to work with you. And so, and your clients are not all the same either. Your clients are, all demographics, all, income ranges, you name it. Like diversity is very, very wide.
Yes.
So you want to make sure that you don't limit your diversity by having everyone the same, but you do want to look at the qualities. So, what qualities are important in your team? So for some organizations, they could be pretty standard. Others, they might be a little bit different. So one of my core values in my organization is that we have fun doing our work. And so we identify what that fun means. It doesn't mean we're not doing our work. It means, we can, have a little humor in the day, take breaks do something fun, do, team building kind of things.
Yeah.
But at the core of our work, we want people to enjoy what they do. So when I
Yeah.
talk to people that I bring on, whether it's a freelancer, part-time or whatever, I always ask them, what do they consider fun? And it
Yeah.
doesn't seem like a typical interview question, but if their idea of fun is so radically different from the rest of the team, that if we're going to be, as, team building and bonding type activities, if we're going to be doing something that they're absolutely going to hate, they're never going to
Hmm.
participate in those activities. So I want to know that up front. And so it may be something that I can incorporate into it, but maybe it's something that just really isn't going to work.
Yeah.
But knowing that at the front end is good. So you want to not only identify the core values, but also define them. Like, what does it mean in your organization? Because fun to me is different from fun to other people. And you want to really hone in on those definitions. And then you design your questions in your interview around those to identify your cultural fit. And then,
Hmm.
you never want to forget about the technical competency. So you want to make
Right.
sure people can technically do the job, but you also want to make sure they share the same values, that they're aligned with the mission of your organization, those types of things.
Yeah, I love that, and I love that you're talking about fun because a couple reasons. There's a personal reason. We say here that if you're not having fun, you're not doing it right, and that doesn't mean that you can only have fun if you work the sidelines at a basketball game or something like that. We can be doing important work that matters and maybe and even has serious impact, but enjoy what we're doing. And I think part of the point you're making, Rebecca, is that we do that by getting people who see what we do and how we do it as fun and they enjoy that.
Right.
We when I came to Compliance Line, the company had a strong history, had a great a great background, and had been really run exceptionally by our founders Brian and Steve. And when my brother and I came in, then we realized that what we needed to do was make sure that we didn't mess up what had made this company great so far. And we went through this process to get get people in to help them or help us understand what had gotten us here and make sure that we didn't kind of let any of that. The top 10 values that we did through this process was fun.
Right.
So we define that as we laugh, we make each other happy, we get a little weird, and that's okay because we choose the positive outlook and believe that our attitudes make the difference.
I
So
love
here
that.
at Compliance Line, oh, thank you. Yeah, it was definitely a labor of love from a bunch of people to kind of figure out, well, what do you mean when you say that? And, oh, well, I mean having a good time or whatever. But we tried to boil it down to that because we deal with serious issues here, right? People are reporting misbehavior to us, or we're helping someone be less stressed in their job as an ethics leader by getting this work done and kind of driving them toward insights instead of just kind of doing reporting or whatever it is. So it's important that we do our job right. To your point, it doesn't mean that we're not working, but we can
Right.
choose that positive outlook and enjoy each other's company as we get an important job done.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I like
Uh,
that.
so I really like that you pushed on, getting getting those values defined, and I think that sometimes people tend to fall on either side of that balance of the technical skills and the values and the fit. Talk to us a little bit about how, as an ethics expert, we're hiring someone on our team. We maybe have a scope if they need this certification or this background. How do we balance kind of making sure that they have the technical skills and that they're also going to be a fit?
Yeah. Well, one of the important things to remember, and especially now, it's kind of a crazy time for hiring.
Yep.
And, even before COVID and the pandemic, it was pretty much full employment.
Hmm.
So, a lot of what I would work with my clients on is, you can't find the perfect person anymore. They're very difficult to find. So you have to decide up front what is a must have and what's a nice to have. So
Mm.
for me, the must haves always are around the culture. And
Yeah.
you can always train someone who is very bright, smart, intelligent, has intellectual curiosity, a thirst for learning. Those people are very trainable. So I think for many companies now, your decision is, where can I train and where do I already need this expertise? Because there's a cost involved in having a position empty while you search for that perfect person that's both a cultural fit and a technical fit.
Okay.
versus bringing someone in who's a great cultural fit and maybe a 75% technical fit where you train the other 25%. And you can bring that person up to speed in a few months as opposed to having that position open for 3, 6, 8 months or however long it might be while you train them on the things that they lack. So if they need a particular certification, technology hiring is really, going gangbusters right now. So if you need a
Sure.
certification, they don't have it, can you hire that person without it, with the caveat that in 90 days they'll earn the certification, those kinds of things. And that helps a lot with filling your open positions, getting the right cultural fit, the right people on your team, but yet not sacrificing those skills that you need in the process.
Yeah, that's really important. Yeah, I love that balance and that, I think it's hard when you have an open position and you need it and, it's maybe hard to anticipate this stuff ahead of time or somebody leaves. You say, all right, well, we got to get somebody in that role. Well, if you get the wrong person in that role, you're going to kind of waste or spend a lot more time and money, kind of trying to get that right than spending the extra time making sure you find the right person. But
Mm.
I like that you give us this perspective that if you hire for the must-haves, the cultural fit, the motivation, the fit with the job, you can kind of backfill some of that technical stuff or some of those capabilities during onboarding or the first 90 days.
Right, right. Yeah, and I could spend hours just giving you all the heartbreaking stories of people who hired for the technical skill, ignored the
Mm,
cultural fit, and then later, just regretted it. I know one small business owner who ignored my advice as a recruiter that, the cultural fit wasn't there. I was really 90% sure that the technical capabilities weren't up to what they needed, but they were desperate to fill the position, put a body in the chair, and it
yep.
came very close to bankrupting the company. And that's the kind of thing that just is heartbreaking. And my mission is when I work with my clients is, you're paying me for my knowledge and my expertise, and I'm not going to let that happen to you.
That's tragic that happened, but it's good that you were around to maybe help them right size it. I think you said almost, not that it actually bankrupted the company.
Yeah, we caught it in time, so that
Caught
was a
it
good
just in time.
thing.
So I'd love to expand a little bit and talk about, the issues that ethics experts are trying to solve. And these are, we talk about getting a healthy organization is just like getting a healthy organism, like a human body. You got to get the sickness out and get the misbehavior out of the company. And then you also got to drive health and you got to, take your vitamins and make sure people are engaged and all that kind of stuff. On that kind of getting the sickness out piece, what are some things that you either see go wrong in the hiring process or people can do better to make sure that once someone gets here, they're not going to fall into some bad behavior? Listen, like we can do background checks and find out if someone, has been in jail for something, but a lot of the things that end up happening that are unethical are kind of this slow slide into something or someone kind of trying to get away with it or thinking it's not that big of a deal. How can we infuse some things into our hiring process so that our whole organization, even outside of our ethics team, care about, the integrity that's always on everyone's values wall and stuff like that?
Yeah, so integrity is one of those things that it's kind of hard to know whether someone has it just from conversations. But there are a couple of ways you can ask questions. And one of the things that I counsel the people I work with is to not lead people to the answer they want to hear. So when you're asking questions, there's some psychological things that you can do to trigger people into telling you the truth instead of those answers they find on the internet, because everybody researches the best way
Yeah,
to answer the question about,
yeah.
whatever
My
XYZ
greatest
is.
weakness. No one says my greatest weakness is I lie in interviews all the time.
Right, right. So one of the things that I do is it's a quick little trick, but I always start my questions with the phrase, could you tell me? Now, that's kind of a yes or no question. When I say, could you tell me? You could say, yes, I can, or no, I can't.
Hmm.
But if you phrase your questions that way, no one in an interview is going to say no. They're going to answer the question. So you can say, could you tell me about a situation where you had to make a difficult decision? Okay, so it's pretty wide open. And it doesn't say, where you made the right decision in a difficult situation. You're just leaving it very open. And when you do that, people tell you the most amazing things. They get thrown off guard and they just start talking.
Huh.
So I had asked that question of someone in an interview once, and they started telling me about how, they were working with someone and they didn't like this person, and then they accused them of all different sorts of behaviors. And the more they talked, the more it became clear to me that this person was the problem and not the coworker, right? But if
Uh-huh.
I had phrased that to be, tell me about a time when you had to make the right decision in a difficult circumstance, I never would have gotten that information. So it really, you have to really think about your questions, and you really have to kind of analyze. It's almost like the people who design the surveys and those questionnaires, you want to get good, clean data. You don't want it skewed by anything in particular. So you
Mm,
really want to, be conscious of the words you use, because words have meaning. And we talked
sure.
about that earlier when we were defining our culture, right?
Hmm.
So, if you ask that question about the difficult decision, you might say, well, I'm not sure, candidates sometimes will say, I'm not really quite sure what you're asking. And I was like, well, we make decisions every day, all day long. So at some point in your life, you had a decision that was difficult, and it could be personal, it could have been at school, it could have been in a business environment. You choose the difficult situation and tell me about it. And sometimes they pull things, from, way back in their childhood, or,
Mm.
it's very interesting as a kind of a student of human behavior. The depth of things that you learn about people when you know how to ask the right questions is just truly amazing. And you really get to the heart of who people are when you ask questions in that way.
Yeah, and you make a great point that if you just kind of give them some room to talk, they're gonna tell you something. And I think there's a balance that we have to strike as we're adding people to our team, because you want it to be structured, and you don't want to be discriminating against people because you're only asking certain people certain questions. But you can have a structured way of asking open-ended questions that
Right.
ultimately gets to a place where someone can just talk and say, oh, well, when you say tough decision, I think of this type of thing. And they can tell you a lot about themselves, even if it's not the thing that they're telling you about.
Right. And that also opens up to the door to, how do they think about things?
Mm,
What do they do to analyze a problem? Who do they go to for help? They might tell you, like, I really didn't know what to do. So, I did research. I talked to people who had been through this situation before. And, so things like that also give you clues about who this person is and how they'll operate and the way they think and the way they analyze problems. And, you really don't want to hire that person who's going to come to you as their manager and dump every single little issue in your lap for you to take care of.
sure.
So that one question can just really open up the door to a wealth of information.
Cool. Yeah, I really like that. And I'm gonna have to hold on to that. Could you tell me? And see how they interpret it. I'll be using that one. If you're about to interview with me, keep an eye out for it. um, so getting back to that kind of healthy organization, healthy organism illustration. A lot of times, as ethics experts, we're primarily, like, at least as a first step, you got to kind of get the sickness out. You got to make sure misbehavior isn't happening. We do that a lot of different ways. I imagine there are some things that you advise people around in the hiring process to kind of prevent further problems that we as integrity experts and ethics leaders end up kind of dealing with if someone doesn't hire someone well. So what are some of those things that you might advise someone to look out for and to avoid in that interview process, that we probably deal with all the time because someone didn't do that?
Yeah, so I think a lot of times the issues that ended up on my desk and kind of, from a compliance avenue or even ethical type things really surround um, kind of what I would call ingrained behaviors. So when you're looking at hiring people, you really want to look at those past behaviors, what they've done in the past. So I'm going to try and think of a good example. Um, this actually happened recently. We were hiring someone for, it was an office manager position, but they would also be doing some bookkeeping and accounting, managing the petty cash and that sort of thing. And when we went through the process, there were a couple of red flags that came up. The first was a long gap in the resume. And the person said, oh, I took some time off. I was dealing with some family issues and that sort of thing. And that's, normal, people do that. And then we're like, well, what were you doing, when you're taking care of a family issue, did you do anything else? Did you continue your learning? Well, no, this family issue consumed all of my time. And so there were red flags there. We weren't really sure if we wanted to proceed. But then we got to the background screening, which I think is incredibly important because, like you said, people don't always tell the truth.
Right.
And we ran the background screen and found out that this person had been actually serving time in a felony charge in prison for embezzlement from her prior organization. So, someone who's going to be handling money, we needed to know that ahead of time. And what happened there that I would advise most people to do is make sure you're using an employment application. This particular company felt it was not necessary. It was an extra step. They already had the resume, they had references. But on that application, you can ask about convictions for those types of things.
Okay.
And there's some, and I have to caution you because there's some jurisdictions that now have the ban the box where you can't ask that question until after you've made an offer of employment and that sort of thing. So be a little careful with that one. And as compliance experts, you're probably well versed on those state and local laws more so than I would be.
But it's a worthwhile caveat. Yeah, we got to be careful of that.
Yes. So definitely make sure that you're checking that box in terms of, because right there, if someone's going to lie on their employment application and you catch it, you have found that out before you've actually hired them. And that's important. You don't want to go through that whole investment of bringing them on, training them, getting them on the team, setting up their benefits and all of that, only to have to let them go because those costs, you never can recoup those. Sure. So that's one thing to do, is just make sure you have a solid application reviewed by an employment attorney and that sort of thing. And just when you structure your interview, make sure, like you alluded to, you're asking all the candidates the same questions, but you're leaving plenty of room to have follow-up questions and dig deeper into those answers when you're interviewing your candidates. So I think those two things would be my top two tips to put in play with your recruiting process, to just make sure that you're filtering out those people before they ever walk through your doors.
Yeah, that's great advice. There's a potential to catch some of that stuff up front. And to your point, there's some things that you maybe wouldn't fault someone for not disclosing voluntarily, but if you ask for them directly, then you have a binary. Were they honest about it or not?
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So in addition to the hiring that we're talking about, you do some work, Rebecca, on engaging employees and keeping people satisfied. And I think that as we move in, we talk about this dynamic of moving from compliance 2.0, that's just kind of do some things and have some processes and be efficient, to the 3.0 is really about being effective and engaging employees and actually caring about people, not just the ones that sue you, but all of the people who work at your company.
Right.
So talk to me about some of the things that you focus on when you're talking about, engaging employees and helping them really live a strong life at work beyond the hiring process.
Yeah, one of the things that I do is I work a lot directly with the hiring managers, because if you look at all the research, people typically don't leave jobs, they leave managers. Yep. So I like to work with the managers and really help them be better communicators with their team. And when you look at reasons people leave jobs and what they consider to be a bad manager, communication and feedback are the two things you hear most frequently. So a lot of times I think we live in this society where, we have to watch every word we say. We're worried about being, appropriate and not offending people. And I think sometimes that makes us a little afraid almost to talk to people. But I think
Yeah.
if you come from a place of, I want to learn and I want to understand, when you ask questions and talk to your staff, most of your staff is going to really appreciate that openness, that transparentness, that honesty. So you might want to find out, if you notice someone who is, has been a great performer, and then suddenly you notice things aren't so great anymore, just have that conversation with them. Just say, hey, I noticed, you're not performing the way you used to. What's going on? It's not like you. I want to help, whatever's going on in your life, I want to help you through it so
Yeah.
that I can, make sure you're doing a great job and continuing to contribute. And so when you approach
Crazy,
it
just
from that,
actually caring about them and talking to them.
right,
Imagine how that
right,
might work.
right. I know, right? So I think, if you approach it from that way, and I think most of us tend to go the opposite direction, it's about discipline instead of prevention. So the earlier you address a situation and you address it from that place of, I want to learn what's going on, I want to help you through it, the better it's going to be and the more engaged your team is.
Yeah.
And then right now, I think the biggest thing for most employees is fear.
Mm,
They're afraid because they're afraid of not only, the virus and what it means to them, but what it also means to their job, their companies. What is work going to look like in the future? Are we ever going to be able to get back in the office? There are some
right.
people who truly are missing that in-person interaction, and they're not doing well, when they're not in an office, in an office environment. They don't do well when they don't have the structure of, I get up and I go to work every day and I interact with people in an office and then I come home. And now you're trying to work from home and do that remotely, and you can't walk next door to your coworker's desk or cubicle or office and talk to them. You have to use another method, and it doesn't feel as personal. So just really understanding who those people are who need that extra touch, that extra communication, doing a
Mm,
couple of quick video check-ins with them, not just using email or phone, but actually jumping on a Zoom or a Microsoft Team or a Skype call with them, just so you can see and interact with people. There are a lot of different things you can be doing to keep people feeling part of the team. And I think the other thing I would recommend right now, especially in this crazy time, is to just be honest with them about what's going on in the organization. One of my small business clients was faced with the decision of, I can close the doors entirely, or I can
okay.
cut a few staff members,
Hmm.
or, thinking about, what about a pay cut or different things like that. And I think if you just go to them and just saying, we're struggling financially, we want to protect everyone to the extent we can, share some ideas with us. How do you see us going through this process? What ideas do you have? And you might find that your employees have some great ideas about new ways to do business that would bring in more revenue and keep your doors open. So you
Yeah.
wouldn't have to think about layoffs. So I think just being honest with people, engaging them in the process, letting them know what's going on. I mean, you don't have to tell them the whole financial picture, but you do have some leeway there in asking for ideas of, this is crazy time. What do you think we can do to, change the way we do business, or to serve new customers, or offer a new product or a new service?
Yeah. Yeah, you got to try to be flexible. And I mean, that transparency is a big thing. There's a certain type of fear about the unknown. I don't know what's in the closet. There's another type of
Mhm.
fear that's more anticipation about, okay, it's going to be one of these two things in the next month. And if you can take that kind of unknown fear away and say, hey, here's what we're looking at, here are the trade-offs and stuff like that, it's really a great way to serve your team, and get people to understand what's going on so that they can focus on what matters instead of wondering about the 45 other things that they might worry about but maybe don't matter.
Right. Right. Yeah, exactly. And with this particular business, it ended up that one of her team members was like, I didn't want to quit in the middle of this, but I've really been wanting to do this thing, on my own. It's been kind of a passion project. And,
Okay.
you know, I'll raise my hand and say I can leave voluntarily because I really want to go pursue this other interest. And right there, she saved a salary that allowed her to keep
Uh,
her other staff. But if she had not had that conversation, that person was thinking, I need to stay here because I can't leave this boss that I love in a lurch during a crazy time.
yeah.
So you just never know what's going on with people. But if you're open enough and you just open that door for them to tell you, it's amazing sometimes what you get back from your team and the support that you get. Because if you've done your job right, your team wants to support you. And
Hmm.
the payback for that support is that you be as transparent and open and honest as you can possibly be with them.
Yeah, I mean, imagine in that situation if they had laid somebody off who wanted to be there, and then the person who wanted to go pursue that personal project was like, "Hey, I would have done that."
Right, right. Yeah. So,
Yeah,
just by having that conversation with her team, she alleviated even more stress.
yeah, that's great. Um, as I'd love to just kind of get any parting words that you have for our team. Anything that we haven't covered, or anything kind of call to action or inspiration that you can give us that we can actually make a difference by paying a little bit more attention to this issue about hiring that you spend so much time helping people with.
Yeah. Well, I did write a book, so I would recommend, I'll be a little self-serving here, that
Oh yeah,
if,
I was gonna pump that. Hey everyone, you should check out YOLO Insights, check out the YOLO Principle because you really do only live once. And
right.
yeah, we're definitely gonna get there. So tell us more about the
Yeah.
book and anything else you want to say.
Yeah, sure. And, and I made the book fun because I told you at the beginning, fun is a core value.
It's got to be part of it. Yeah.
And so there are these really interesting, people call it poetry, but I call it really bad rhymes. Because one thing I found is when you make things fun for people, they remember them. So when I was, corporate HR, people either loved the HR department or they hated it. But
Hmm.
for me, I would always, it was always, you have to be the enforcer at times. And when you did that, I tried to make it fun and lighthearted, even though it was a serious thing. So when someone was late with a performance review, I'd send them I used to call them my nag emails, but they were fun because they had these little rhymes in them that, made people laugh, and they're like, yes, I know I need to do it. Okay, I'll get it done. But if
Yeah.
I had just kind of like, oh, you need to do this done now, you're late, you're violating company policy, blah, 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 people wouldn't have done it. They would have continued to ignore it.
Right.
So the book is filled with these little rhymes that make it fun and easy because, not everyone wakes up and says like, oh, yay, I get to go hire people today. I just love hiring. So, so I've made it fun and a little bit lighthearted, even though it is a serious subject. And it's really a roadmap. It walks you through that. So gives you a lot to think about. It's kind of a preliminary thing, but there's a chapter in the book on interviewing. And I think my biggest recommendation for people who are doing the hiring and want to get the right people from the very beginning is to really spend time identifying the core values and then designing your interview questions around those core values and the cultural fit in your organization. And
Hmm.
then adding in your technical experience level type questions after that. So I think that's the biggest nugget I can leave people with.
That's great. I love that. We say here that we're always going to be a values forward company because values touch people's hearts a lot more than metrics and our quarterly plan and stuff like that. And it's also a way that we can align around the mission that we have to make the world a better
Mhm.
workplace. If people
Mhm.
believe in that, they can pick up the technical stuff and they can pick up
Right.
the, okay, how do I use this different ticketing system or whatever it is. And I love the push on values, and you've seen it through your career or through all of the advising that you've done, that it really makes a difference. And I think it's something that people tend to, you said that a lot of people may not wake up and say, oh, I can't wait to do hiring. I think at least part of that is it seems like it's kind of hard to get it right. And it's so disappointing when you have to go through it again. And it's hard to really make an objective or high confidence decision. But you've
Mhm.
done a great job, Rebecca, giving us some tips and some insights on how that can be less of an opaque and less of a
Mhm.
scary process. And also, I just think it bears repeating because we all can get better at it. if you hire someone who fits the job and fits your culture, then there are a lot of other things that they can get up to speed on and get onboarded with. And if that fit isn't there, then all the technical skills in the world are not going to keep someone engaged. All of the kind of onboarding tricks and laying out a presentation for your policy and all of that, they're not going to make a difference for someone who doesn't fit in that job. And I really appreciate the way that you've helped us as ethics experts on our own team, and then also as people who have a contribution to HR and to the culture writ large, can help drive this forward so that more people get into the right job and they can really contribute in a positive way.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and it's what I love doing. There's for me nothing is more fun than when I make that connection between some amazingly talented person and an organization who just desperately needed their talent. So
Yeah.
that's what wakes me up in the morning and keeps me excited about what I do every day.
That's great. Well, it's great that you found a job that you fit in, that you're engaged in, and I think that as we move forward as leaders, that's always going to be a big part of the equation to make sure that the people we bring onto our team and the people we bring into our company have that fit. They have a manager that cares about them and can help them through any tough times, and we can build that transparency, and hopefully have some fun while we're doing it.
Right, exactly. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Rebecca. This has been Rebecca Barnes-Hogg, the CEO and Chief Consultant at YOLO Insights. Check her out at yoloinsights.com. And you can find her book, YOLO Principle, The Ultimate Hiring Guide for Small Business, wherever books are sold. Rebecca, thanks so much for being with us and sharing some of your expertise to make us better ethics experts.
Thank you. It's been a great time. Have a great day, everyone.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining. This has been the Ethics Experts. We'll catch you on the next show.